Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to create and animate 2D character rigs within Blender. There are two halves to this video. In the first half I'll be showcasing the various types of rigs that I've made and how you can use them. And in the second half I'll be giving step-by-step instructions on how you can create your own 2D rigs. So as you can see, there's quite a variety of types of rigs that I've created, such as very simple IK rigs like this one, to more complex IK with lattices to create this sort of bendy effect. As we run through the timeline, you can see they're animated because these are from actual projects that I'll provide links for. And as you can see, there's these handles that you can grab and move around for various parts. This is the waist and the shoulders together, or just the shoulders. The head can be squashed. The boobs have their own control as well. And that's just an example of how the rigs can differ from each other and how you can create your own rigs. You can be very creative in creating your rigs to make them do exactly what you want them to do. And that's what I want you to come away from this video with. Here are some other rigs that actually completely transform during the animation. And as another example, his head and his hands completely dislodge from his body in this one part of the episode here. And I'll be showing you how you can create these rigs and animate them. This character is only visible from the top half of his body in the late half of the episode, which is why he looks so weird over there. This is the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. As you can see, he turns to the left at this part here, which is just an example of how the rigs can be used. It's quite versatile. So, without further ado, here is how you create your own 2D character. First off, go File, New, 2D Animation. This will open up a new 2D canvas to begin drawing. I'm just going to turn up the strength and turn off the pen pressure and press F to turn up the brush size, zoom out a little bit, and start drawing a basic head shape. Doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm just going to start drawing the rest of the body, slightly offset from the head so that we can separate it later. Just a basic torso shape. And some arms. I'm holding in Shift to create straight lines. Basic hand. Not the best draw of hands, but anyway. And some basic legs. Okay, that's good enough. And I'm going to add some color to the fill layer. So just create a new material here, make it a light blue. I think I'm making like a Mr. Meeseeks type character. Just gonna fill in the gaps there and just, there we go. There might be a better way to do this, but I'm just doing it now for convenience sake. And then let's just fill in the gaps. Okay, if there's any issues, you can just press Tab to go into edit mode and just go into vertex mode and grab some of those Press O to go into proportional selection, Alt O to turn off connected, and then just drag your guys around. So I'm putting a lot of shortcuts out there. What that basically is the proportional editing, and then you can press tab or mouse wheel to change the fall off, basically. And anyway, that's our character. So now we want to separate it into different objects. So select the hand, press P, and go selected points, and then just do that for every object. Go into stroke selection rather, just so that you don't leave out any vertices. And these are going to be our various body parts. I think I missed one there. I think I missed the edge portion. Yeah, okay. So now if we go into object mode, we can select these as separate stroke objects. Now to create the armature, go add armature, just position that at his waist, press tab to go into edit mode, select the top, drag it down, press E to extrude, bring that up, press E again to extrude, bring that up, extrude again for the neck, extrude again for the head. This little bone in between, grab it, press X to delete, and select bones. I just want to create a gap there. The reasons for that I'll explain later. So now what we want to do is add inverse kinematics for their head and neck. So I'm going to go into object mode because we need to add a empty to control it. So I'm just going to turn on 3D cursor in the viewport overlays, and then put the 3D cursor at the top, add empty circle, just make that circle smaller, bring it down a little bit, select the armature, go into pose mode, select the top bone, go bone constraints, inverse kinematics to, I'm actually doing the wrong thing here on purpose to show you why. Okay, so, I need to target that empty, so where it says target, just press that eyedropper and hover over the empty, and there you go. So now what we get is this inverse kinematics, but it's not exactly what I want, and to demonstrate why that is, I'm going to select the head. First I'm going to select the correct bone, so make sure you have that bone selected, select the head, and then the armature, press Ctrl P and select bone. That parents it to the bone. You can actually grab the head and move it down now, and then press the neck, put that in the right place, grab the armature, go into pose mode, grab the neck, go back into object mode, grab the neck and the armature, press Ctrl P, bone. Now when we move this empty around, you'll see that the grease pencil objects are parented to the bones in the correct manner. I don't like this though, because the head rotates relative to its positioning, which I don't want. I want the head to rotate independently of where it is. So to remedy this, I'm going to duplicate this empty, make it smaller, and put it at the top like this. I'm going to go into my armature, pose mode, select this bone, press shift, hold and shift as I select the top bone, press Ctrl C, copy selected constraints, IK, OK. Now select this bone, turn this IK chain down to 1, select this bone, turn that IK chain down to 1, press cross to remove that target, press the eyedropper to add a new target, that empty, and as a final step, grab this empty and parent it to the bigger one. And now when we move this around, you'll see that the head stays in position, and if I rotate this head, if I rotate the empty, the head rotates. So now if I press R and I rotate, the head rotates. If I press G, it moves around. So now I have two axes of control over the head. I would just like to go over the relationships of the head here, because I went through that part quite quickly and I used a tool that not everyone may be familiar with. So there are two IK chains here. There is one for this bone. It's connected to the large empty and it's got a chain length of 1, and there's another IK chain for the smaller circle, and that's also got a chain of 1, and that's what creates this movement here. And the way that I did that previously was I just copied the constraint, and to do that, go into your preferences, go to add-ons, type in here copy, and just turn this on, interface copy attributes menu, turn that on. So that enables a variety of things. You can copy constraints and modifiers across different objects. So for example, I can select this bone and then this bone, press Ctrl C and say copy selected constraints, and then say IK, which is what I did there, just in case you are confused. It's important to understand that all these elements can be edited even after you've added the relationships. For example, I can go into this armature, go into edit mode and change the positioning of this bone, and that will change the armature. But then I can go and grab this neck, I can go into edit mode, I can resize that to fit, I can grab the head and move that around if I want, and that'll change the relationships, but it's useful if you want to tweak your character rig, or if you want to change it during an animation to create some sort of effect. That is also possible. The reason that I left a gap here was so that I can add more controls. So I'm going to place the 3D cursor there, and I'm going to add another empty circle. Just going to resize that. I'm going to go into pose mode again, select that armature with the IK on it. I'm going to go copy location, and I'm going to target this empty. So now if we go back into object mode, we have more degrees of control, because now I can actually move the entire head around as I wish. And if I select these two empties, I can move the head like this. So that just gives me more control if I want to maybe make a side view of the character, or maybe remove his head for whatever reason. There's a variety of things that you can do, but I find it useful to create this extra degree of control for every limb on the body, so that it can be removed or moved to another part of the body. So now I'm going to begin creating the arms. So let's just go back into our armature, edit mode, extrude, pressing the E key. Gonna move that to the shoulder, gonna move that to the elbow. It's gonna be a little bit shorter than what we've got there. And I'm going to go back in here and delete that bone. Now I've made the arm one object, and this is because I'm going to use a different system to the head and the neck. I'm going to make the arm bend using a lattice. So to do that, I'm going to position the grease pencil over the arm. I'm going to add, the 3D cursor, I'm going to add a lattice, and then just turn that resolution up. Then I'm going to resize it. Do not resize this in edit mode, because it will mess you up later. Let me just get that to the right size. I'm pressing S and then Shift X to resize that, and then S and X, resize that along the X-axis. We can actually add more divisions. Let's make it about 15. And then add some vertex groups here, okay? And then the first group, I'm going to select that, go into edit mode, draw a box around that half of the arm, and say assign to that group, and you'll see it changes to red. And then select the other half, select group, the second group, and assign them to that. Now you want to rename these groups to the names of these bones. So to check what the name of the bone is, just go into pose mode. You can rename this bone if you really want to, but I'm just going to look at the number. It's bone 6 and this is bone 5. So let's go into the lattice again and rename this to bone.006 and this one to bone.005. So that's going to attach this vertex group to that bone and this vertex group to that bone. So to create the effect, select the grease pencil object, just go into edit mode and move that into the correct place. I can actually resize this lattice because I made it a little bit too small. Just S, Shift X, and then I'm going to go select the grease pencil, go add modifier lattice, and that's going to connect the lattice to the grease pencil with this target here. I've got the lattice selected, and now go into the lattice and add a armature, and then select the armature, and then what that should do is create a link between your armature and the grease pencil, and there you go. So now what we want is the IK. So I'm just going to position the 3D cursor there, add a empty, go back into pose mode, select this bone, go bone constraints, add a inverse kinematics, target this empty, and set the chain length to 2. And if I've done that correctly, we should have some basic IK. And then of course, as I was saying earlier, I want to add another control over here, so just add another circle there, go back into your armature, select that bone, add copy location, and select that empty. So if I've done that correctly, what we should have now is a arm that you can disconnect from the body and move around the body however you wish. Now we have some weird behavior here with the armature moving in 3D, and we don't want that, so I'll show you how to correct that now. So up until now, we've been ignoring the y-axis, which is this axis here. So to correct that, we can just grab these and go into the object properties and set the y value to 0, and that'll move it onto the XZ plane. And then we can actually lock those to the y-axis just by pressing that button there. And then now what that does is it just limits the rotation. You'll see we get some strange deformation with the lattice. So to change that, select the lattice and go into your lattice properties and set the interpolation for the y value to catmull rom. I like to keep the V onto B spline, but that might be different for you, so maybe just experiment with those values to get what you want. And what you see now is that we haven't really got much control over whether the arm bends down or up. So to fix that, we need to add a pole. So just duplicate this empty and select your armature, go into pose mode, select this bone, go into your IK and select the pole target as this empty down here. So now when we move this arm around, we'll see that it's not in the right position. So to change that, go back in here and just rotate that until it's 180 degrees. And then that should fix the problem. Yes, so now when this is below the arm, it bends upwards, and then when this is above the arm, it'll bend downwards. Fantastic. So now what we need to do is connect the hand to the arm. In order to do that, I just changed the position of the origin there. So to do that, we can add a new bone onto our armature. So just go into edit mode, add a new bone on there. We can actually add two. I like to keep them separated. I've learned from experience that it's better to keep these bones separated. Okay, and then just parent this to your armature like that. So now when we move the arm around, the hand will stick to the arm. But what we want is for the hand to be able to rotate independently of the arm. Now to do that, a simple trick is to just select your grease pencil, go add modifier. Rather go into your bone, go into pose mode, select the hand bone, go into bone constraints and add copy rotation, and then select the empty and just turn off X, and instead of replace here under the mix, just set that, change that to add. And what that does is it still maintains the rotation of the underlying bone, but now when you change this, the rotation of this empty, the hand changes rotation. So now you have independent control. Similar to how you have control over the head, but we're using a different method. Instead of using two empties with IK chains, we're using a copy rotation constraint. So it's basically two methods of accomplishing pretty much the same thing. Hello. So now is probably the hardest part of the entire process, just copying this arm to the other side. In theory this should be easy, but it's kind of complicated. So press numpad O to go back into your camera view. Select everything to do with the arm, including this empty here. If you press G and move it around, it should move everything, including the armature, by the way. And just press Shift D and move that over to the other side. Press RZ 180 to rotate it. Grab this hand and just rotate it so that it's sitting in the right position. Then what you want to do is you want to rename the bones in here so that it doesn't get mixed up when you join the armatures together. So select this one and just rename it to arm 1. You can rename this one to arm 2 and this to hand. Okay, and then if you select the lattice, you should see that it's changed the names in here as well. So now what you can do is just delete all the bones inside this armature except for the ones that are in the arm. Grab everything and just move it into position. Select the armature, select the arm and then select the armature and then press Ctrl J and that'll connect them. That'll break some connections, so if you select the lattice, go into your modifier here and just connect that back up to the armature. Okay, and the pole thing is not working either, so if we go into pose mode, select that bone, go into constraints here, make sure that this is on that empty. Okay, it is, and then just change this pole angle down to 0. I think because we rotated it, it sort of changed things there. But now if we move this around, you should see that everything is working as it should do. and that hand is also working there. You can see that the arm isn't exactly connecting up, and you can actually just go in here and you know, edit it as you would. This is just a tutorial though, so I'm kind of lazy to, you know, fix all the little errors. But if you were, you know, creating a proper cartoon, you'd obviously put more effort into it. Okay, onto the legs. To create the legs, we're going to go into object mode and select the armature, go into edit mode and extrude out these bones to make the shape of the leg. Create 2 bones for the feet and delete the bone that connects to the ribs. Go into object mode, add a lattice and position it over the leg. Add more subdivisions or resolution to this lattice and resize it so that it covers the leg. Okay, and then we're going to add 2 groups. Let's go in here and see what our name is. This is bone 7 and this is bone 9. So we're gonna create 2 groups and call them bone 7 and bone 9. And then we're gonna add some these points to it. Okay, let's just make sure that this connector is in the right place. So it needs to be in between 2 points. Okay, so assign those to the first group and assign these to the second group, and then go into the modifier stack and add a armature to the lattice, and go into the grease pencil and add a lattice. Okay, let's see if that connection is working. Yeah, that's working just fine. Let's just set this lattice to capital ROM, and we need to create inverse kinematics. To add inverse kinematics, just go into edit mode and make sure that this leg is bent in the correct direction, and go into object mode, duplicate these empties over the leg and create one for a pole as well, and select the armature, go into pose mode, go add constraint, inverse kinematics, and add the empty, and for your pole add that object and select the angle to 90, change the angle to 90, select this top bone, add copy location, and copy the location of this empty. Now we should have a leg that works. Okay, so now we need to parent this leg to this bone. So we can do that quite simply by just selecting the bone in pose mode, select the objects in object mode and go parent bone. And now we want this bone to copy the rotation of this empty. So add a constraint to this bone, make it a copy rotation, and select that empty. And now you'll see it sort of messes up the rotation. So we need to see which one of these to choose. So go into object mode, select this empty, and just rotate this like this. We'll see that it's the Y that's changing the most. So we can actually lock these 2 axes. And we can do the same thing for this hand and for this hand as well. Let's actually just reset this to 0 and 0, and can rotate that. So we're just sort of fixing the transforms now of the various things, because there's a lot that can go wrong in this rig. Okay, so we know now that it's the y-axis. Okay, so go back into your armature and make sure that this is set to Y. But now you'll see that when we rotate this, it rotates on the wrong axis. Okay, so you need to change which transform gets applied to which other transform, if that makes sense. So it's like a matrix operation, but basically you want to change this XY Euler to the right thing. So we can actually just scroll through this list until we see one that changes the rotation in the way that we want it to. And this one has a different rotation. So let's see if that works. And you'll see that works just fine. And let's just move this into the right position. Okay, so move this like this and like that, so it's over the foot. You take more care in your one, but we can see now that it moves appropriately. Okay, so now let's just go and copy this leg over to the other side. And delete all the other bones, and let's just rotate this 180 degrees and see there's a bone that we left out over there. Okay, move this into position. We want to rename these bones so that it doesn't mess up when we join them up. So just call this leg 1, leg 2, and foot. Okay, and then you want to grab this armature and this armature and go Control J, and let's fix this link on the lattice. And okay, well that seems to be working still. We just need to correct the 90-degree angle here. Change that to -90. Okay, so there we go. We have our cartoon character. We can actually increase the size of these circles down here, so we have better rotating feet. So now what we want to do is add control to the torso of the body. In my previous rigs I had a bendy torso, but I think for this tutorial I'm just going to keep it as a static torso. So to create the torso, add a empty, actually just duplicate one of these empties for the waist and another one for the shoulders. I'm actually going to delete this top bone because I don't want to create a bendy body, it's just going to take too long. So I might make another tutorial on that, but let's just parent this. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to copy the location of the first empty. Let me just select that one, and let's actually make this a little bit smaller. Okay, move that down a bit. Right, and we select this bone and add a inverse kinematics and select this top empty and set the chain length to 1. Not that it matters because this is the base bone, and we want to parent the right things. So at the moment the bone moves but the body doesn't, so let's parent this. Okay, so now the torso moves, so select these 3 empties and select the armature and parent them to the bone. So now the top half of the body moves around with that empty, and parent these 2 empties to the empty. So don't parent these to the armature, parent these to the the actual empty, because this empty is controlling the armature anyway. Right, so now when we move this around, we'll see that we've got a dancing blue guy. Dancing Mr. Meeseeks, maybe. So the point of this is basically minimal effort for animators. So we can turn off the lattice, we can turn off the armature, and we don't need to worry about those things as animators, we just worry about the controls. As you can see, the legs aren't exactly in the right place, but we can fix that because we can just pull them up and pull up the feet like that. And there you go. As you animate, you'll find that there will be little things like these fish that you get, maybe that thing. All of these things can be fixed, and I have fixed them in my rigs. Basically what you have to do is you have to break up the coloring of these sections, well, of this arm into sections. That'll remove this effect over here. And to remove these fish, you can simply create a mask. Actually, let's do that now. So what you want to do is select that grease pencil object, go into draw mode, go into your layers, add a new layer, call it mask, and select lines, add a mask, and select the mask layer. As you'll see, it'll hide everything, so press that button to invert the mask. And now what you want to do is draw a little section where it will hide the lines when the arm bends. So go into your mask layer and select a fill stroke and just draw it over the arm section like this. Oh, okay, I first have to turn off the lattice. So yeah, let's just turn that off. And we can draw in here. Like that. Okay. And go in here and set the opacity of the mask to 0 so we can't see it, but it's already masking out that line, as you can see. So if you go into edit mode, you can see this grease pencil object. It's not perfect, make it perfect in your version. Okay, so let's turn this lattice back on, and when we bend the arm now, you can see that we no longer get that fish effect, and you have now rather this more defined forearm. And that works on my production rigs. The last thing I want to show you how to do is animate the grease pencil objects themselves. So say you want to change this hand into a fist. What you do is you have your grease pencil timeline down here. So change it to another frame, go into draw mode, and simply start drawing. So go into your lines, and we can, draw a fist. I don't really know how a fist looks, but I guess it's something like that. Okay, select your dots, fill, and just do a fill line, and it will automatically draw over there. So now when you go over your timeline, he changes his hand to a fist, and you can add as many in between frames in there as you want to animate that transition. And the same goes for the head. You'll find that you'll want to repeat a lot of frames, and for that you can use the frame offset, time offset, I think it is. Yeah, time offset. And you go fixed frame. So now I can add multiple things in here. Let's add a frame for, whoops. Let's add a frame in for a big smile like that. Okay. So go back into object mode and go into your frame and change it to fixed frame. And now if we use this, we can change it. And you can animate this value, so you can have as many different mouth movements as you want. I think I made it, no, okay. So this hand changes over time. The head no longer changes over time, but if you wanted to, you can animate this value. So let's make it 2, and then on the next frame, make it 1. And as you can see, we've got a little animation going on there. So thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, take a look at my other content. I'm going to be making a lot more videos soon. Thank you so much for watching. Love you lots. Bye. Goodbye.